Mm, that's interesting. Oh, oh.
There it goes.
They got the switch. It's like, all right. Well, with that kind of good old countdown on his way and a great way to start the Valentine weekend, technically. How's it going, everybody? Welcome to Gaming Over 30. My name's Dushan Williams. Here's my co host, Christopher Moncada. Having a great day. And of course, this time, I have another question for you. And that question is, Chris, when do you feel like you're actually done with the game?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think for me personally, I've started to realize that being done is for me is when I'm finally just like, all right, I'm not gonna play this game anymore, and it's eventually comes towards like those open world games that you have all your side quests popping up, stuff like that, and everything. Um, I get like a I guess anxiety overload, and then I start deciding, oh, what am I gonna do? How am I gonna do this? Should I do this side mission? Maybe I shouldn't do this side mission. Is this side mission really worth something? Am I gonna miss out? You know what I mean? Like all this stuff runs through my head in a matter of like 30 seconds.
I'm kind of like that too, right? Like there are just sometimes where you have the anxiety of stuff, and then there's sometimes they're like, how many hours have I put into this game? Like realistically, you're just kind of like, oh. And me and you are RPG buffs, so we kind of struggle with this a lot because sometimes the games already come packed with a lot of stuff to do. And if they actually do have DLC and stuff like that, it's kind of the fatigue's already kind of there. Um, but I also know some people who kind of blaze through content a lot faster. There's some people are just like, I beat it in 5 hours. Like, isn't it a 20-hour game? Like, yeah, just there's like, isn't it like literally like this? And it's like, I guess they must have skipped the like kind of like the lot of the sequences and stuff. 'Cause I'm like, there's no way I'd be able to do it. Even now, I'm like, I haven't played a lot this week. But I'm like 7 hours into like Hogwarts, and I'm like, there's no way I'm even halfway. I don't even have a broom yet. It's like I'm just
Oh
literally
yeah,
all over the place.
I feel that because like since I've been done with school and stuff like that, I've been starting to play into more games, and I've been cautiously waiting to start Cyberpunk again because I know once I start that game, I'm gonna like dedicate my time and everything to it. So I'm like, hold on. Let me finish off this game first. Now I came back to Cult of the Lamb. I just got two more bosses to beat. Let me get through that, and then from there, if there's something else I want to dig into, then I'm jumping into Cyberpunk. Because if I
You're
don't do
definitely
that,
pushing off Cyberpunk at this point.
well, it's one of those things because I know once I play it, like I'm gonna be into this game, and I knew when I first started it the last time when it first came out, I was into it to the point where like I was like forgetting to do schoolwork and stuff like that, and I was like, "Oh shoot, I gotta turn this in 2 hours. Let's do this."
Mhm.
And so now I'm like, you know what? Like I try to take my time. I've had some nice like days off. I've had some nice times where I don't have to do anything. I can just watch whatever I want. You know what I mean? Because I don't have schoolwork. So I've kind of gotten all of that out of my way now, where I feel back to like, okay, like I'm getting used to just having afternoons after work and stuff to myself and everything, and to do pretty much whatever I want. And so it's like, all right, cool. And Cyberpunk's gonna be my big main thing, but like I have these other two games. But I will say watching that last Nintendo Direct, it got me like in the mood to play more on my Switch. And so it's like, okay, I have Cult of the Lamb on my Switch. Like I originally bought it for my Switch, and then I have it on my wish list on my PC because I have a little bit issues of how it runs. And then I was like, you know what? No, it's on my Switch. I'm gonna play it on my Switch. I can play that anywhere I go. And so now I have the evening tonight after this off, and I was like, I think I'm gonna jump into Cyberpunk tonight.
Good. I need to go back to like I need to play more like Hogwarts Legacy because like I actually do enjoy the game. Like the game's actually pretty tight, but I just like work and everything this week has been like on top of everything. Like I don't touch it until like maybe like midnight is when like I finally like legitly like look at it, and then like one night I was so tired like I'd play like 30 minutes of it. It's like, oh, I need to go sleep. I was pretty much ran through for that day. It's just I was so tired, but it is one of those things where it's like I have the same concerns because I've been afraid to touch Elden Ring like at all, like even like on I take it out because it's one of those, like I do want to play it, uh, like it is so far one of the best things that I can say right now. Like trying to get into, and then it's like like it's been 6 weeks now. And it's like like that's that. I love the realistic there. Realistically, I would probably play like completionist, like you know, kind of just but maybe not the game. Maybe I'll probably
I don't know if you want to check it because your audio is not coming through right now. Actually,
ooh, it's not coming through. Hmm.
okay, there it goes.
I thought
Check it.
maybe I just cut out.
Yeah, it was going in and out. So and I was checking on our live streams to make sure, and yeah, it was coming out kind of janky. I don't know if you want to try start that thought again.
Yeah, well, I mean, shoot, I was trying to figure out like where I was on that. But essentially, I think the best way to wrap that up was just to kind of say like, there are just some games I want to play, and then like there's some games like Elder Ring that I do want to play, but I know it's going to be a lot, and when I do play it, I do want to kind of give it the time for it. But that's kind of why I'm playing like all these other games. It's like, well, these games I know they're shorter, even with their content they're probably shorter. I do enjoy them, and some of the reasons why it's like, okay, well, I just got Hogwarts Legacy, I want to start it the way when it came out, so that way it's like it's done, because a lot of the games that I haven't really played, I didn't play when they came out. I got them later, so they kind of all were already benched, like as a thought process. So
Yeah,
it's like I'm afraid to touch Elden Ring for that matter, because it's like, I know this game's long, I do want to experience, I want to experience what people are liking about it, but it's just, I know it's a lot of content, and I just for like games that I play, like I've played through Pokemon, but I didn't play all the content. I stopped doing like all the extra stuff that they were doing for like the Terra battles and all that. I was like, oh, it'd be cool to kind of get all these, but then I gotta go fix stuff up and all that. And I was like, I really don't want to do all that. It's just like, it's like after a while, like I was done with Pokemon when I kind of got through it, and then like I said with Forspoken, like I beeline to the story. I'm like, yeah, there's other stuff that you could do. Nope. I ain't touching any of that. I'm going straight over there. It's like, but the power ups, not really all that worth it. If I got to hear another cringy line, I'm done. It's like, I'm done with this. I just want to beat the game already. That's kind of like, where it's at. So, what other game that you feel like you've been like, I'm afraid to start it outside of Cyberpunk because I know it'll take up the time?
actually another one which it's a little RPG-ish, but not too hardcore RPG-ish, is a Near Automata. Because I
Hmm.
missed it when it originally came out. So when it originally came out, I was like, okay, like I was like, all right, cool, whatever. I could just deal with that. I'll get it later. And sure enough, I got it on sale. And then they announced the remaster of the prequel game, Near Replicant,
Hmm.
and that was the one where I had ordered the special edition, and then about like 2 months into it, I was like, yeah, I'm not gonna get the special edition, and then I forgot about it, and whoop, then I just see my card deducted, boop, special edition. I was like, oh, all right, next time I'm getting special edition, and so I got it, and that's one of the ones, another one where I was like my year two in school, and I was started playing it, and then I started getting really into it, and I was like, all right, here we go. I was having fun, and it was kind of that same thing where I was like, oh, I gotta do my homework. Like I need to take a break. I need to stop, and so I stopped myself, and I was like, all right, I'll eventually get back to that game, and so I had to put it back on the shelf, but. It's another one of those games where I played it, and that one's kind of more of a straightforward, like beeline with the storyline and stuff like that. But to upgrade yourself and get stronger, you can just go around and do the small things to kill the monsters, do all that fun stuff and everything, which I love doing in like the old school JRPGs and stuff like that. Like I used to, even in Pokemon, I would waste way too much time with just like leveling up my characters and Pokemon to absurd levels on small beans over and over. Like for some reason, I just like doing that
Yes.
little grind and just like, right, beat this monster, beat that monster, cool, whatever. And especially in like the days nowadays, it's like it's dangerous, man, because like you all could just put on one of our podcasts while you're out there grinding because you don't really need to listen to the sounds or the music at this part. And when that happens, it goes, oh, hey, look at this. Like, I could do this, I could do that. I'm doing two things at once in a sense, but it's like, all right, I had to stop myself, get through this, and that's another one I'm definitely gonna get back to because I want to play both those games, especially because the anime came out and I'm forcing myself not to watch the anime because I'm pretty sure it has spoilers in it.
Yes and no. Like if you're already like aware of some of the endings, then it really shouldn't be, if that makes sense. But it is one of those things where it's like when it comes to the anime, it's like you're just there to enjoy it. Personally though, like I dropped it after one episode, not because it was bad, but it was just kind of like, oh, I'm not is it kind of gave me like the same feeling I had with the game. I was just like, maybe I'm not really in it for it right now, so like I'll have to come back to it, maybe just binge it. But it is one of those things where it's like, oh yeah, it's not an immediate thing, especially with a lot of anime showing right now. It's just like, I can wait on this, like when I'm just comfortable to watch it through, because it does kind of go through like the first episode already has like one of the endings kind of thing. So it's like, okay, well, I mean, I know I'm past this point in the video games. I didn't know this was the actual ending or whatever might be the case, but you just assume that it's gonna tell the story in a different way. It's going to be different than most anime, so it's going to be interesting on that part. But if I know I didn't really say like kind of like what our title was for this kind of video and everything, but hopefully y'all got a pretty good idea of what we're talking about here. And it's really kind of, I think, what every gamer kind of faces, because now with new games and stuff like that, it's just interesting to know when is it that you finally played the game, like the replayability, when you feel like you just kind of got everything that you wanted out of a game, or do you care enough to even play the DLC when it comes out? I know I'm pretty bad about this. Like sometimes I've bought the DLC because they kind of come with like the collector's edition and stuff, but I won't go back to it because it's like at that point I already played like four other games. It's really kind of hard to go back to a title and then be
Yeah,
like, oh, I gotta remember how to be good again at it with all the button controls and stuff, and then I gotta enjoy it. Like there's only some that I've really done it that I liked. Like Infamous Second Son was like one that I did go back for is downloadable content. I really did like it because like that game, like I enjoyed the heck out of Infamous, and so it was one of those things that I definitely went back for. But like even like some of the Assassin's Creed stuff, like the last DLC that they did for Valhalla, I was like, no, because I really didn't care about the Odin stuff. Like I really didn't like, and to be like, do you want to do just that? No, I'm
yeah,
good. Like I like it, like this was already kind of like a long game, and then you got when you just see everything's just like a checklist and everything, and it's like, I don't need to do that. Technically, I beat the game. Like I kind of figure out where everything and everything else is just challenges at this point. They're not really moving anything forward or giving me any more context than I already know. Unless it's like if you get like the best weapon in the game, then yeah, for some reason they have context that kind of goes with that. But when it's like, can you just help Jimmy over here get across the street? And it's like, no, screw Jimmy. Jimmy can figure it out. I was like, I got things to do.
yeah. That's always been my biggest issue. I think I tried it 2 times, and I know I want to do it a third time because they had the update come out for it. But The Witcher 3 is one of those games for me where, like, the 2 times that I've played it, and I think both times I've restarted the game and probably put in about 15 hours each time into it. And it's one of those things of like, it's just, I see the map and it pops open, and I go, okay, that's that, and that. I'm supposed to do this. Let's go to this. And then like I start checking the Mac, and I personally just get lost on myself and go back and check it. I was like, wait, was it this one I was supposed to do? No, I think I was supposed to do this one instead. Let's go do this one instead. And then I just end up getting lost. And at that point, I don't know if I lose interest in the game or if I just like, my brain just kind of goes, what are you doing? Sensory overload. Let's watch TV instead. And it's like, okay.
Yeah, and I think that does happen when you have to kind of step away a little bit just because it's just too much. And I think that's a big problem, right? Because it's like our way of defining open world is that if you don't have tasks to do, then you have no reason to explore it, kind of thing. And it's one of those things where a lot of games, I know Ubisoft gets his for it a lot, but a lot of games just have, just a breadth of content that is just like you need some reason to be in X and X town. So we're gonna put like 20 things that you could do in X and X town. Or like this middle part, this random area, you got 10 things that you could do over here. Like it's a mechanic that kind of gets you out, and then you kind of see that like the world is not as empty because you get to experience a lot of it. But I think we need to start shifting to like stuff just needs to be more surprise. Like if you don't go in that area, then you won't find anything. It needs to be like how like when you were playing a random Final Fantasy 7 game and you went out into the open world, and then it was like you had to go find out where the place was. It took you a while, and I think games like Wild Arms at the time was even harder because it's like they didn't really give you any context of where you need to go. You just really had to kind of figure it out, But those were kind of nice. We just need to kind of more flesh it out, that part out a little bit. And I just think there's just a lot of games now that they shipped with like a laundry list, and
Yeah,
when there's nothing to kind of go with it, like unless at least there's like story, like as long as there's some kind of story, you get to talk to people and you get to see some funny things. Because there's some things I do chuckle and laugh at, like when you find somebody had like this kind of weird problem that they need help dealing with it, but they can't do it themselves for some odd reason. And sometimes you could chuckle at it, but other times it's like, I don't want this to take up too much of my time. Like if it's more than 20 minutes, like it better damn be good worth my time to even attempt it.
yeah, yeah. Like I actually agree with you a lot about like kind of finding the items and stuff like that. Because the one game that really got me in, like it took me a while to beat the game because of how I played it, and I think I've talked about it before, but it was Breath of the Wild when it came out. I think it took me about 4 months to beat it, but that was one of those games that I consistently kept playing and kept going back to, and I did the quote unquote like hard mode on it where I took off the HUD and everything else, so when you jump into the game, it's just the scenery, Link, and you just go wherever you go. You know what I mean? And so
Mhm.
I played it that way. So I would find the ruins, the temples, all like the mini shrines and stuff like that, just naturally on my own. Just go here, go here. Okay, let's try that out. Let's try that out. Okay, this is a main story. I'm supposed to go over here. Okay, cool. Oh well, now I ended up over here because I thought this looked cool over here. Oh, I died over here because it was too cold. You know what I mean? But
Mhm.
because I didn't have all these check marks and stuff popping up or always around there on the screen, it really like made it a point to me, which like, all right, like I am enjoying this. I am loving this. Like I'm just kind of exploring the world on my own, doing my own thing, and I was I played the heck out of that game, and I put so many hours into it. And like I said, it's one of those games where I actually beat where I thought I wasn't gonna beat it because I have a hard time beating these RPGs because that's what happens to me.
Yeah, and see, that's another game I have to go back to now that I know like the new Legend of Zelda comes out in May. Like that's not even in my schedule right now. That kind of screws everything up. Because yeah, they're gonna like we're gonna and remember we were just kind of talking about that. We're like, oh, kind of comes out in May. Like I'm thinking not too much comes out in May, and that was like block full. Like
Yeah,
just gonna just drop that game and whatever. It's like, oh, okay. So now I need to find some way to put the other one kind of back on the schedule because now I'm like, oh, I gotta play this game. But that was another game where, yeah, I did like the aspect of like you kind of walked out on that and you're like, ooh, damn, like this is a nice area, and you kind of I like that ain't game. I did get lost. I will say that when I like first explored it, I was like, what do I do though? And then it's like the beauty of actually asking that question, like what do I do? Like I don't know where to go. I don't know what to tackle. Like it kind of gives you some hints, but like I was in like a snowy mountain for a minute, and I was like, I'm not sure if I'm supposed to be here, but I'll figure it out the hard way. And it's nice when that's kind of the thing, right? And I think that's kind of why I was kind of interested in Elden Ring, because from what I get from all the reviews of it, is that they kind of solve this problem. Like there's a reason for you to go throughout the world of Elden Ring, and that it wasn't as like lifeless as like other games. And this is why a lot of people appreciate it. And to me, like on the outside, I still don't see it. So
yeah,
it's like I guess I have to experience it myself, because to me it just seems you know, like a game like if you were this Mega Man, like you're just going straight to the boss, like at this point, instead of
yeah,
having to go through like a whole stage about it. You just like, oh, there's that thing's bigger than me. It must need to die. Like it's like it is kind of how I see it. It's like what else do you expect me to kind of get out of it? So that's why I'm like, okay, I kind of want to experience it to see if they kind of fix this problem, because it is a problem. And unless you do a lot of the other padding around it to make it worth it, then it's really like hard to have it as a plus. And I hate to bring it up, but Forspoken was like a good example of where it doesn't work. And then
right.
like I could tell like how much more I'm enjoying Hogwarts Legacy because a lot of the extra stuff there is actually pretty fun. Like some of the people are pretty goofy, and then you can actually kind of have different responses to like what they say or whatever. And it's like that's like, oh, I kind of like that. You can actually, hey, I did all this work to help you and your family, blah blah blah. Then you could say, but I'm keeping it. So yeah, I'm out. It's all like that. That's a lot bit difference. Of opinion. It's all like, oh yeah, thank you for diving in the water for me to get this thing. And it's like, oh yeah, no, it was a lot of work. So much work is that I'm keeping it. Thank you. And then you just walk away, and it's like they just had all they can say to you is, "Damn you."
Are you
But
gonna
just
be
keep
an
out of
evil
yourself.
wizard? Are you going full evil on this?
No, some of them I like literally in hearts of hearts. Like some of them I just can't do. I think I did it one time, and they gave me a, a cop out answer to kind of go the other way, and I took that because it's like actually I probably would have did that. Probably said keep it, but then be like, psych. I just want to make sure you need to quit trusting people like that. You can't just be telling people to go find gold and then give it to you. That doesn't make any sense. Girl, you gotta learn. You gotta learn this lesson today.
Yeah,
But like, there's some other people you're just kind of like, well, I don't. What other benefit is there for me? Like it's what because one of those games where it's like, okay, if I'm good, do I get something good for it later down the line, or am I bad? Do I destroy something later down the line? Yeah, it's like you. That's
gotcha.
kind of like like the thing that you have to kind of balance, and I think that's a nice thing to do. But that's the type of padding that I'm talking about. It's like there has to be something around it that makes it worth it. If not, then you're not really. You're just going to Walmart basically.
Yeah, pretty much. And that's where like going into our tower, it's like when is it finally time to stop for me? It's when those RPGs just kind of get a little like overwhelming for me, and when that happens, I just kind of go, okay, like I'm not having fun anymore. I'm just getting anxious. My palms are sweaty, and all I'm doing is just running around, not even fighting anything. You know what I mean? Like it's like at that point, it kind of shuns me away from the game. That's why, like I've heard nothing but good things about the newer versions of Assassin's Creeds, but I just kind of go like, well, I don't want to do it because I remember playing the first and second one, and doing those checklists was just like the right amount for me to do because it would be in a certain area, get it done, get all the towers, get all the little extra things you could do, and then you would move on. And it would be like, okay, cool, I can do this because I know I can. If I want to get everything here, I can do it. If not, I can just move on to the next area and so forth and
Hmm.
so on. And when they went to that kind of open world aspect of it, it kind of threw me to like a, ooh, I don't know if I want to play that anymore. Like it's literally scared me. I was like, ah, everyone says it's really good. Everyone says Odyssey's really good. Everyone says the Valhalla is pretty good, but it
I
scares me.
understand. I understand the concern. Especially if you play like Assassin's Creed 5 and then Syndicate, then I can kind of see where you might a little bit scared. Because to me, I actually don't like games that happen in like one setting. A lot of times, like if it's just like, oh, explore New York, and it's like, yeah, but I don't necessarily care, like of that aspect or something like that. I don't want to just stay in one city. I do want to feel like I'm going different places. Because then I feel like they always do the thing of like, oh, conquer this area to unlock it, conquer this area to unlock it. Like even Spider-Man does that. It's like, oh, beat all
Yeah,
these bad guys so that way this thing is done in full, then you can get like the skin or whatever. A lot of times. So like a lot of games kind of do that. That's why I kind of like to kind of just stay away from that and not be like blocked in the city limits. And that's why like Origins, the Odyssey, and like Valhalla did a lot better in that regard because they kind of went back to like, yeah, let's go to different towns, let's go to different cities, let's meet different people. But let's travel around. Even if we're traveling around in a circle, it's still better than traveling around in a circle going like this. It's
yeah,
just like there's sometimes that you can widen the garden a little bit more. And I think that I think I do appreciate those games, and I do appreciate them trying to at least make it palatable to be able to kind of do that kind of exploration.
nice.
But when is it for you when it comes to DLC for different games and stuff? When you've already beaten a game, you've already you did all the thing that you could have. You got the story, you saw the ending and stuff. And, ooh, as see, I said DLC, and they're like,
They
not in
said
this
DLC,
house,
dude. Yeah,
not in this house.
they're pretty much speaking for me. Like I am, I'll be the first one to say when it comes to DLC, I almost never touch them. when it comes to them. And I think it's kind of the idea of like I've already moved on for the game, so my mind's kind of forgotten about it. And even though the DLC may be coming up and I see ads for it and stuff like that, I go, oh yeah, I got what I needed from the game. I can move on with it. I don't really need to do it and stuff like that. Um, it's weird because I'm trying to change my mentality in it because like that's one of the reasons why I want to get into Cyberpunk is because that new DLC is coming out, and I was like, okay, that looks cool. That's got my interest. The game and everything already has the vibes that I like and love and stuff like that when it comes to the Cyberpunk world and stuff like that. So it's like okay, like I want to make the effort to make that change to be like I'm gonna check out this DLC because even for smaller games, at some point they'll have like a DLC option and stuff like that, like for small indie games, and I'll just be like, okay, that's cool. I'm not gonna go back to it. So that's it's one of those things where like DLCs just don't work for me. But
Mhm.
when it came to Destiny, like those were one of the ones where I always would go back to and always play the new content for. And I don't know what it is that Destiny did that made me want to keep playing the game and me keep going to it and be going back to it and doing all those new missions and stories and stuff like that. Maybe it's just because I really just love the lore and world that happens in that compared to the others.
Well, see, I guess Destiny kind of cheats in that regard because it's an MMO, like at best.
Pretty
It's
much.
an MMO, so like its job is to not just give you DLC, but to give you content expansion for you to dive into. So it's like if they fail like DLC, then they just fell at a game. Like they can't make anything else. Like that's literally has to
Yeah.
be your bread and butter. But it's just like with other games, like and I guess for me, like the only time that I really care, well, you see, just don't like DLC. He is not happy about DLC. They're like, why are you
No,
talking about this? I was okay
he's
with
got his
the other
ball.
topic.
Go ahead.
But it's just like when it comes to like just general DLC, like it does have to be kind of story based. Like it does have to kind of further the story a little bit. So like for Assassin's Creed Valhalla, like when you kind of beat the game, um one of the characters that you had to deal with earlier, like kind of gets around death in a way. And so like they try to experience the rest of the story, be like, oh, I need to see what happens because I want to know for my own sake for some reason. And so they give you a reason and kind of like, oh, this is why we're continuing the story because we're continuing the story technically through this other guy's eyes, not necessarily through the main character's eyes anymore. And so they kind of like plays around that. So like, okay, that makes a little bit of sense. That's a nice way of like tying it together and stuff. But like for like other games where it's like, oh, it's like, oh, actually, perfect example. The Last of Us Part 2. You now have a mode to where like if you basically get touched, you're dead. Or like if you die, you're done with the game. I think you have to restart the entire game. So you have to play this entirely long game without dying, without nothing. It's like yeah, we're going real hard mode for this and more realistic mode. But it's
Right.
like since that doesn't get shipped at the like with the game for like hardcore people to just to do it, like for me, it's like I'm never gonna go back to that. I don't enjoy the game that much to do it, and then I don't really like watching stories twice. Like I don't hardly ever watch movies twice anymore. Like once I watch a movie, I'm kind of done with it. So to kind of go through all that again, it's like just for like a skill check, it's not enough replayability for me to kind of do that kind of thing. The only really DLC I have no problem with whatsoever are DLC characters.
Yeah, like how we smashed it with the DLC characters and fighting games and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Like going back to my point of like trying to change my mindset on it. That's when they came out with the next gen update for Witcher 3. It was one of those ones where it's like, okay, like I'm gonna buy it because I already kind of had the game, so I'll just get the DLC and the expansion added on because it's already cheap because it was discounted. And then I was like, cool, I can have it set there, ready to play it. But because I know the DLCs for that game are so big, but it's like, well, I can now just kind of experience it as a full whole game instead of at the time when it happened. It was like, all right, game DLC later on. It's like I got them all together now, so I could just kind of sit through and play through this entire game with the DLC and get to experience all that stuff.
And you know, I was going to ask you about that because I think I heard about the whole update to it. Is that to like current game, or do you have to buy a whole new game?
It should be to current game if you have it. Well, I think for the Xbox it might be current. I don't know about for PC or PlayStation 5.
Yeah, I can't even figure it out because I have like two Game of the Year editions for Witcher 3. Witcher 3 was one of those games I'm really mad I didn't play. Like I didn't play it around the time. I didn't have the interest. I tried to play one, but I tried to play one like years later, and I don't think it was
Yeah.
the best thing to do. It's hard to play games that pretty much was like in the Xbox era, or like kind of like that older era, and you
Oh
never
yeah.
played it around that time, and to now play it now when like even like the more basic stuff is kind of fleshed out is really difficult to go back to it because I'm like I really wanted the context. Like it's weird to play the third installment of a game and have no idea who the main character is, have no idea about the background. And it's like, oh, I want to jump into it, but I wanted to kind of build up to it. But I just I played like 10 minutes of the first one. I was like for like a PC game, like I don't think I could do it. Like I don't think I could
It's
beat it.
rough.
And like then play two, and hopefully it's a little better, and then jump into three. Now it's like I might as well jump. Now that the show exists, like I think I have some context now, like what The Witcher is. So now I can just hopefully I can just play the game and kind of just go that way. But it's like I was kind of upset that I never did got to play The Witcher 3. I was just like, oh, I really
Yeah.
look I kind of robbed myself.
I know the Witcher 1 is super hard to play because my buddy Will was one like trying to play it through all of them and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And I know he's super stoked because I know they're doing like a full remake of the first one to play more modern and stuff like that, and it's going to come out in the near future. And so that should be something to excited to look for because uh, that's another thing where number games kind of give me that scare. So like when it comes to these type of games and everything like that, it's like, oh, they have a number on it, so maybe I should play the other two first or play the other one first, and that kind of gives me the anxiety of like, I want to play this game and I don't know how long I'm gonna spend into it, and am I gonna just stop and finish it, or do you know what I mean? All that stuff just starts running through my head,
Yeah.
and so the Witcher 3 though was like, um, it's a game you could jump into, like, because the way The Witcher works is kind of one of those games where it's just like a bunch of like stories that happen with this character, because that's kind of how the books are and everything. So they're a bunch of like short stories for the most part of just adventures following this character.
Hmm.
So when you go to The Witcher 3, if you didn't play one or two, that's where it gets like kind of like, okay, like you'll be good to go into it. And that's my friend Will was like super into it, and so that's why I asked him about it. I was like, hey, like you've read a couple of the books, you've played the second one for sure, you've tried playing the first one. Can I jump into it? And he was like, yeah, absolutely. It's like, and once he told me like that it was just basically like that, it helped me to ease my mind to be like, okay, cool, I don't have to worry about it. Whereas like a game like Jedi, the new Star Wars game that came out from EA, Jedi Fallen Order.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're having the second one come out this year, and that's one of those where it's like I haven't played that game, but I need to play the first one of that one, because if I jump into the second one, I'm gonna miss a lot of context in that point.
Yeah, because I think a game like that, for if you want to get into Jedi Survivor, then you definitely need to play Fallen Order, which I'm glad I glad that's not all that expensive. So kind of happy
Yeah,
about that. So it's like, oh, that one won't break and it's cheap now. And I think I'm not sure if they gave it out for free or not, but I think Game
I
Pass
think it.
play it.
Yeah, it's on the EA Play option for Game Pass, so
Oh,
I know
okay,
it's on there.
gameplay. So yeah, like at least that one you can like jump in and kind of kill it. Cause that one I don't think it was long. I actually got to see where I'm at in the game because like it was just one of the games like say I just dropped, but it was just like I think I dropped just because of what was going on, not because the game was bad. It was bad itself. Like it was just I think it was just like I'm kind of like I sleep kind of thing. Like it was just
Yeah,
something interrupt my time. But
that's where one of the things I like. I think it's harder for us and people around our age or just have a extremely busy schedule, where you kind of see like like the tides kind of turning a different way, where a lot more games are starting not to become giant open world games. They're starting to become more compact, 20 maybe 30-hour games in a sense. Like even Elder Ring is one of those games where like, yeah, it's like a vast open world stuff like that, but to just play and beat the game, everyone's been averaging around 20 to 30 hours for that game. And it helps a lot because like for me, like when I was even before I was going to school and stuff like that, like I had such a busy lifestyle with my kid and like everything going on and keeping up with the house and all this other stuff, that you kind of just forget about the games and don't go back to them. And then another game comes out and you go, oh, I want to do this game instead, and you just lose the interest in the game. You're like, oh, I need to go back to it.
So I don't want to lose that point because we don't talk of we do and we don't. We don't talk enough about like how like sometimes our lives kind of interrupt the way that we play. And so I guess that'd be the actual next question is like, have you played a game that you had to stop because current life stuff got in the way? Like it just, hey, well, this is when my kid's really ramping up on like stuff he's doing in eighth grade and all this. So that kind of took precedence, or like, like, oh, we kind of did like a big move and stuff like that. So I had to really pause and stuff. Like, have you been having a lot of that, lately, where it's just like you just
Yeah,
had to take long pauses and you ended up not going back to a game because of it?
yeah. Actually, it's probably my biggest love and everything is was it's been Destiny 2. When they had their big expansion last year come out, I took a couple of days off so I could actually just play the expansion. And I was on my last year of school, and I was just so busy with school, work, and then like my kid had some events he had to go to and stuff like that, where I just said, you know what, I can't play this game right now because I need to finish school. I need to make sure like I'm there for my kid and stuff like that. And I had that moment where it's like, all right, cool, like I'm gonna put it to the side and I will come back to it. And now come a full year later, because the new expansion is about to come out at the end of this month. It's like, oh shoot, like I just lost a whole year of that game that I used to play basically religiously, like at least once to three times a week, if anything, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's definitely one of those ones where like life just became, oh shoot, man, I like it all hit the fan right now. I gotta put you off to the side and let's just go full forwards with life, and maybe the game will somehow come back into my life.
Yeah. And I agree. Like I think when you have stuff like that, like it's a problem. I think for me, I think the one time was probably like for the wedding, like that month in October, where it was like we got closer. Like I was really hitting hard on Tales of Arise, and it's RPG, so it's just one of those things. But I love playing it, so like I was just kind of playing it a lot for like 2 weeks straight, and then once the wedding comes around and like stuff is not working like it's supposed to be working, like you kind of in a hands-on deck kind of mentality, like, oh, I got to go figure out what's going on, what's the problem and stuff like that. And it almost caused me to not go back to the game. I actually didn't go back to it until I want to say either July or June is when I actually tried to go back to it. And I was thinking, oh, I'll go back to it and finish it. I should be towards the end. I wasn't. The game was a lot longer than really what I gave it credit for, because I was like, I played a ton of it. And then to say like I still had a lot to do, I was like, Jesus Christ. And then that game has a lot of like extra stuff, because like you had a like DLC where you can actually fight Kirito and Asuna from Sword Art Online. Like
What?
you and your characters having a big battle with that. I was like, that sounds like something I got to prepare for. I'm not sure if I want to do it. Like, and it's like, it's like, that's cool. And then it was like, oh, but you can also dress up as the characters. Yeah, I'm not into that. But it's just like, it was just one of those things where it's like, yeah, that sounds dope. But that would have been dope when I was playing it. Like, when it was like, that was my focus. Now I'm
Yeah.
having a hard time coming back to it, because when I saw those ending credits, I was like, I think I'm good. I did God's
I,
work. I'm
I
done.
think I think I think at our age and like how we our lives work and stuff like that, we don't get as much time to game. Like when you get to that ending credits screen, it's like oh, I did it. I I did, like you're about to like start crying just because like you're proud of yourself for beating the game. You're like, I beat this game. Yes.
Yeah, because it's like you're kind of released from it now. Like that was the thing that was like really holding you on to like the game, because there's like I can't quit. There's no way I can quit. Quitters never quit. Or whatever would be the case. But that made no sense. But it was just one of those things where it's like, if you don't see the end credits, then you didn't beat it, you failed, blah blah blah. But it also feels bad, because it's like, oh, like I don't know how the game ends. I don't know where we go with from there. I can't even think about the DLC at that point. And then it's like when you finally see the end credits, it was just like, another one's in the bag. All right, okay. Now what do I do? Like, it's like you kind of think of the next thing, but it's
Yeah.
like you're kind of a little bit free. Like, okay, I can take a break. I can kind of think about what I need to do. I can think about like what kind of other game I want to tackle. But it's like you have that freedom of mind of like, oh, now I can play multiple of other games, or I could do all this stuff, or like, oh, maybe I need to spend some time like to kind of figure some stuff out that I've been kind of thinking I was trying to figure out. But it's like that ending credits is just that release. That's like, okay, we're done. We're done with the game, and this is kind of why I do try to do extra stuff before I get to that point, because I know if I get to it, I just won't go back to it. Like I have to do that remark. Well,
You
but
know what's other good relief before you like we ask this question is deleting the game because you beat it off of the hard drive. Like, you know what? I'm done with this. It's gone.
that's another thing. And see, that's a real feeling. And before I read this comment out, that is a real feeling because when it comes to the PlayStation 2, I've completely filled this hard drive. And it's not hard. And I hate that it's not hard to fill the hard drive. But it's the fact that it's like once I take the like I still have Final Fantasy 7 remake because I need to go back to like the other stuff that happened after the game. And I am gonna go
Yeah.
do it. And I'm telling myself I'm gonna do it, but it's 100 and something gigs. Then it's like, geez, I had to delete like 90 something gigs just to play Forspoken. Like I'm so mad about that. And it's just like I had to take off a game that I know I can't go back to. Cause you know, another game was like that, Spider-Man. Like I beat the like I actually had it took me a while, it took me years to go back to the DLC. And I was kind of happy about it because then I could play all the DLC and I kind of skipped this whole like episode thing, kind of BS they were trying to do.
Yeah.
And I was able to play it through, but we're talking about like I mean, I got it when the limited edition console came out and I beat it last year. Like it's just like that difference in time. It's just because it's
Yeah.
like I know it's story based, it's cool, but it's like it's also checklists and stuff. It's just like I'm doing the same things over again, but just in a different group. And so now when I
And,
try to play Miles Morales, I felt like I would kind of Spider-Man out for a little bit. And I was just
yeah.
like, but this is like a DLC of the DLC kind of thing. Like this game isn't really meant to be like a full it's the double A version of the triple A game. Like that's kind of what it
Yeah.
is, except like all these cool, you get all these cool powers and stuff, but it's like, but I've already kind of done a lot of Spider-Man stuff. And then it's like, it's just it was a lot. So it's like that's why I didn't really continue that. And then I'm like, but I can't delete it off the hard drive because if I do, then we're done. I don't want that. And then that's a real feeling. Like I hate
Yeah.
that. All right.
But that's a good segue to go to this question.
Yeah. Is it hard to go back and play the DLC or expansion because they took too long to come out after the original game? A lot of times, yes. I feel like it is when they promise something and it's 2 years after the fact. Like then at that point it's a non-starter. Even if you already bought it, like at this point they basically just took your money because it's like there's no
Yeah.
way you're gonna really play it. It has to be like characters. It has to be Super Smash Brothers fighting games. It has to be something where it's like I went back because character is released and I want to play that character or this character that I wanted came out. Like that's really the only time that it's like it's excusable. But even then, like some people just don't play games like 3 years down the line, no matter what game it is. I think people play Elden Ring now just for like the trials of it. Like, okay, let me do this, see how quick I do it.
Yeah.
But it's like after that, it's like how many people are really going back to games that happened last year and they're still playing it? It's probably like a small list of games that people are actually giving time because you also got games like Lost Ark that a lot of people were playing last year, and then you got other MMOs that are coming out, and then you have there were about like probably a good 5 games that came out in 2023. There's just too much happening. They kind of now go back to an older game, and that's the reality of it.
I think that's like for me personally, your DLC package has to come within this 6 months to maybe a year for me to try to keep my interest on it and be like, okay, cool. Like you gotta give me some updates coming up within the next 2 to 3 months about what the DLC is gonna do, what's it's gonna imply and stuff like that, and add into it. And then by the 6 month, it's either out or you're just finishing up the touches. Give me some more info
Mhm.
about it and have it out before the whole year of your game coming out. Because after that first year, for me personally, I'm gonna probably check out and just be like, all right, it's gone, it's forever. Like I'm not gonna go back to this game because, and in the world we live in today, man, there are so many games. And as a guy like myself who likes to play a bunch of indie games, like I could go through 5, 6, 7 indie games during that time span. I may not beat all of them and stuff like that, but I've already
Mhm.
jumped to so many different games that by the time I get back to that DLC that I played for that one big game, it's like, I'm gonna be okay without it. Even if I bought it, I was like, well, you know what, it's there. Maybe I'll get back to it.
Yeah, and I hate that we kind of have like these are like things that no one talks about. Like this is the double A meeting where we're all like, yes, I go through this too. And it's like I have to kind of get past this. It's just one of those things where it's all like it's a real thing, even though we don't even think about it. I guess that's kind of why I kind of like Game Pass in that regard because I don't really have to download any of the games. Like, you know what's the best feature that's ever happened? That I feel like people severely underappreciate. Making sure that your save file is just cloud backup.
Oh, yes, dude. Absolutely. Like it's been a saving grace for me when it comes to Vampire Survivors cuz
Hmm.
like it came out on cuz it was on PC and I was like I'm not going to get it on PC. I want to see how it comes out. Then they announced it coming to Game Pass. I was like, "Okay, I'm going to start playing it there." And then I bought it and I even bought the little DLC added onto it cuz I was like, "Cool. I have it. I know it's on Game Pass, but I'm going to pay for it." So if it comes off, I can play it on my phone. I can play it on my computer. I can play it at my girlfriend's house if I need to. And like it's perfect. Like I literally, we both had the day off on Wednesday, and I wake up, I take my son to school. It's like, hey, you want to grab some breakfast? She's like, sure. I need a shower and everything. It's like, cool. I head over. She's in the shower. I go to the room. I boot up her Xbox. I go into my profile. We can go into Vampire Survivors and like, cool. Just hang out for 30 minutes, play this game, and I finally beat like a task I was trying to do for a long time there. And I was like, all right, cool. Like this is fantastic. Like all of my stuff is in there. I could just jump into this game real quick and spend some time in it, and I don't have to worry about it, which is like a huge thing that I'm so excited about for Persona being on Xbox now, because I could do
Hmm.
the exact same thing now.
Yeah, because it's just like I said, it's just stuff that we've had to deal with it before. Like if you're a Nintendo dude, you had to deal with if that cartridge is lost, everything's lost. I actually had a friend of mine that I worked with in the past who just got his rental car broken into, and all his old Game Boy games just happened to be in this bag at
No.
that one time and kind of just lost it all. And some of them were Pokemon, so you know that's done. He didn't have enough time to put them in
Yeah.
the Pokebank. And it was just like that stuff is gone. So like if you're a Nintendo guy and you lose a cartridge, like that's just sad. But like when you were like PlayStation, like that the almighty memory card stick, you could make sure that thing was solid. You were afraid to buy off market ones because it's like it's like if this thing craps out, it doesn't matter if you still have the game. Everything that you worked for was gone.
You didn't even want to pull it out because you didn't want to risk the chance of that getting
No,
pressed.
no, you don't want to air on it. You don't want it in the safe spaces and stuff like that. You were make sure they were labeled. Like those things were way too precious. And then we finally kind of got into like mini card slots for like the Vita and all that. It's like, okay, these are temps, but they don't solve the problem. Is when they said finally, you're gonna have your save game, save files be uploaded. You can share with all your consoles. You can like go from like place to place, allowed for like cross platform stuff to happen for you to play the same file on different consoles. Like that is when like I was like, yes, we finally this big thing that's plagued us forever. It's just dealt with, just done, and it's like we don't give enough appreciation to that. That right there is probably the single best thing for like a lot of things gaming today. It's just that.
It's surprising like how long it took for PlayStation to get on the ball with that, because that was like a really like kind of thing that sucked that I would hear from everyone who had their PlayStation like, oh yeah, like you have to pay for it so you could have the cloud saves, and even then it was limited to how much space you had when it came out and everything. And I was like, ooh, that's rough. Like that hurts my soul.
And I hated it, but I paid for it because it was like the being able to make sure, especially if you were going for like, and this is because I was with PlayStation for most of it, from going from like PS3 to PS4, and or PS4 to PS5, like the thing that makes sure that everything was good was the save file. It's like you couldn't move the save file. That you generally just couldn't like moving the game kind of just didn't really feel right at that point. It's all like, oh, I could download the game again, but if I can't download my save file, then it ruins the entire thing. And it's weird that we're talking about that and not and also talk about not going back to games sometimes. But
Yeah.
it's like the even today, like if the games are gone, as long as I have the save file, then I have the option to go back. It's like it's just the thing is just too precious. Like that can never disappear from gaming ever. Even like saving now, every game now has like just repetitive saving, and like for PlayStation, you can go back to all those save points. And to me, I appreciate that too because there's some things that's like,
Yeah.
oh, like I messed up and now I can't redo this whole event anymore because it's like a locked event. You thought I'm gonna go back 5 minutes from now to like the autosave, and there I go. You ain't tricking me this time. I am not gonna go back and try and do all this all over again.
Oh yeah.
But okay. Oh, we have another question. Do you think DLC should just be available right after the game is released or within the first week? And honestly, DLC just should just be released when the game comes out. For me, it's like you want at least something to come out right then and there. Like you want downloadable content to sometimes be, hey, for people who pay for it, here's a reward. You kind of want the reward ahead of time. I get the idea of having the rewards come later, and I get like when like some stuff have to come out, but then it further facilitates the point of the game itself is not shipped 100%. It's how I feel, and I think I've actually seen a lot of videos and stuff talk about this in particular because it just seems like the reason why definitive editions even exist is because that's the game itself. That's actually the finished product, and like the game that actually releases ahead of time is just kind of everything prior. It's the final pre-prod beta of the game. And every time when I see like DLC that kind of only offers a little bit of gameplay on top of it, it just seems like, hey, we didn't add this in because of crunch, so we made it payable. That's why I feel like when you like something like some of the Assassin's Creed stuff comes out and it's like a year later, it just sounds like, oh, we just because we release these games so frequently, that one, well, this content had to be come out later because it's like, so within the first week, I think that's also a good pass. I just like for people who are actually paying for extra content, shouldn't wait even that much longer for it unless it's a physical item. Then hey, we couldn't ship you the physical item, whatever. But it's just there's just some things that it just feels bad to wait for it and then pay for it at the start.
I think having it come out as like when it comes out or like within a week for me might be a little too short because some games you're not gonna be able to finish directly in that amount of time. And I think there's a very very small percentage of people who will play a game and beat it within like a few days and stuff, no matter what game it is, unless it's like a really really short game. But you give a game like God of War Ragnarok for instance. It's not the longest game out there, but it does have some you
That's a
put some
long
hours
game.
into it. You put
That's a
some hours
long
into it,
game.
stuff like that. And so like having to add a DLC right afterwards would it could give you the pressure like, oh shoot, like I haven't beat this game yet. Now I could download the DLC. What am I gonna do now? Do I continue it, etc., etc.? I think giving it maybe a couple of months, like 2 to 3 months, is a nice breakage in between because it gives you time to play the game, beat it if you want to go back and play the game, or try to platinum it, or try to get just whatever achievements or extra little. If it's an open world game, you get your chance to do your extra side missions and stuff like that into it, and then your DLC will drop within a good time frame where it's still in mind. Playing the game is still fresh in your mind too, so you don't have to try to relearn how to play the game. And
Mhm.
it's just a matter of like you said before, a lot of games just don't finish on time now, and that's where like I think a lot of people don't give a lot of kudos to Nintendo when it comes to it because Nintendo doesn't put a game out unless most of the time, unless it's in really good condition and ready to go, with the exception of Pokemon. But that's not really made by Nintendo. Just you know what I mean. It's made by Game Freak in that aspect. But like the your main Nintendo series games, stuff like The Legend of Zelda, Mario, Kirby, even Splatoon. Like Splatoon is another one where they make sure the game is done, finished, and then they ship the game out, and then they'll add DLC later on. And they've been pretty good about doing like DLCs within a few months later and stuff like that. The one thing I will say is that I think Nintendo is one of those companies where I think DLC would make them a buttload of money, but for some reason they just don't like to do it. Like I know so many people and stuff like that, and I'm one of them too. To this point where I haven't touched Mario Odyssey at all since I played it and beat it and everything. But like, if they had come out with DLC for that game, that's a DLC I would have played to jump back into. because it's easy to play, it's fun to play, the worlds they create and is great, and you could have done so much more with that version of the IP to add more to it, to add more fun and pleasure and stuff like that, and they just didn't do it.
Yeah, they rather do it for something like Mario Kart or whatever, for like actual downloadable content. I will say, what do you think about this idea of the third? You know, in Pokemon, they released the two games at the one time, and then they always release the third. What do you think about the theory of the third game is actually the real game? Like that's the definitive edition to like that actual generation, and the first two were like the unfinished product.
I think that for me personally, that's probably more of a modern day thing where the third game is like the final definitive game and stuff like that. But in the past, when it came to like Gold and Silver is a perfect example. Not Gold and Silver, Ruby Sapphire, right? Because then you had Pearl come out after that.
Well, Emerald.
Like, yeah,
Yeah,
and
Ruby Sapphire, and then it was like Emerald, I think, was the third game.
yeah, and that those were the ones where it felt like it was just a kind of a combination of the two games and stuff like that because it didn't add anything crazy or a lot to it and stuff like that. But fast forwarding into the games nowadays from Pokemon and stuff like that, they have recently, especially like from Sword and Shield up to now Violet and Sapphire. No, oh my God,
Scarlet
what
and
is it?
Violet.
Scarlet and Violet. um, you know what it is? Every time I think of Scarlet, I just think of the game Scarlet Nexus instead.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, no, it's Scarlet Nexus. But like these past few games have been a little rough on the edges and stuff like that. Even the Arceus is one of those ones that like it has some jank into it and stuff like that. And so if they come out with a third version of it, then I think that is going to be their definitive game.
You know what? And you brought up Scarlet Nexus. I do want to kind of hit on that for this conversation, but I guess when I kind of think about that, there are some cases where I do believe it, and some cases I don't. Like Red and Blue, they're the first game, so they obviously were games that had heavily restrictions of what they could have done in them, and I think they did a lot of technical prowess to make those games the way that they are. And Yellow at the time, I think was more of a special. I don't feel like that was like the final version of the game. I think that was a true special edition because
Yeah,
it was on the hype of the show. Like it's like, hey, why do we want to just pick the one starter when we have a chance to get all three? And some people want to have Pikachu as their first partner or whatever might be the case. Like we want to make that the thing. So like Yellow, I didn't really feel like was like the definitive version of that game. I felt like that was like a true like special edition. You just play the whole thing. But like Crystal for Gold and Silver and Emerald for Ruby and Sapphire, to me, I felt like were the definitive editions. Because like you said, they didn't really add a lot. They just kind of added some more some more content and maybe a better storyline. But I feel like that's it. Like that was the definitive edition that they couldn't deliver with
I see.
trying
Yeah,
to figure out how to split it up, and then they found like the one game that can do it. And then Crystal, like I don't even remember what Crystal had anything extra to it. Like Crystal is just one of those games that outside of Sweet Coon on the front cover, it was pretty forgettable because you already played Gold and Silver. Like that was the peak right there. At anything like that, you couldn't really come down to. That was just, oh, let's just rehash the game again. Whatever it is, it's like they're just trying to
yeah.
keep the third game thing going on until they got to like Black and White 2. That was the only time where they actually did a sequel
Sequel.
of the game and stuff. And then I think, did Pearl and Diamond have a third game?
I don't think so.
I want to think they did one for like the Ghost one, but I don't think there was actually a third game. I have to actually go back. Cause my mind's like I'm all like, did Giratina get a game at all? I just don't know. Like just don't know. It just like if Giratina got his own game. But it's just one of those things where it's just kind of it's applicable for some. But I think that's why they haven't really done it anymore from like when they finally went to Switch. Because I'm not sure if they got to put out a third game for Scarlet and Violet. But this is probably the only time I think is warranted. Like you want something that's probably a little bit more stable and maybe kind of take in a lot of people's feedback and then make a third game with that feedback. I think that'd be pretty dope. Um,
It did have a third game, Platinum.
Platinum. There it is. I can't. I forgot. It
I
was
had to look it
platinum.
up because I always forget how to pronounce that legendary Pokemon's name, but I have his like I have the cover etched in my memory, and I'm
Yeah,
like,
like
yeah,
I
you said the
really
name, and I was like,
figured.
yeah, yeah. I was like, I think it was platinum, so I had to search it. I was like, yep, it is platinum.
Okay, so it was okay. So it was, and I shouldn't have forgot that game. I was like that. That should have came up to my forefront. But to talk about Scarlet Nexus, I think that's a perfect example of this conversation of, and mainly the like the first part of like for this video is like, can you see yourself replaying an entire game just to get the second point of view? I think that's the question that I kind of move on to. Like, can you see yourself being like, I played a game as one character, I saw all the things. Can I really bring myself to play the game again just to get the context that I'm missing?
The only way I could do it is if it's gonna actually add something to the game. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
I believe, is it Resident Evil 2? Like the remake, you could play as Leon or what's her name, and it changes the way the game plays and stuff like that, and it adds things to the play of it, the game and everything like that. Like in those aspects, like yeah, I can go back and do that, and especially because once you beat the Resident Evil 2, going back to it, you're like, okay, I got it fresh in my memory. I could just kind of speed run through it, but they just changed the way like certain doors can't open, or you have to go a certain way instead, and so it changes the aspect of the game. But for Scarlet Nexus, that was one of those ones that it was kind of just like the same thing over again, right?
In a way. So it's like, I'll give it where credit where it's like you deal with different people, so you have different powers, and so you see stuff from a different point. The anime kind of ruins it a little bit because the anime does a good job of just kind of telling you both points and kind of keeping to that storyline a little bit. So you kind of have a gist of like what both characters had to go through. But if you don't play the girl side, that you don't see what happened to them like at the very beginning of like all the big stuff that happened. But then like when you think about like how they all kind of end up, they're all ending up in the same place. Like at the end of the day, like all the people kind of get together. But it's just like, do I really? Because now that I know how it ends and I know the ending doesn't change, do I want to play it again? Like, do I want to play? Because it was also like a level, like, oh, like this is the first chapter, second chapter, third chapter. Like, it's like, do you want to go from the start to beginning and then do all the relationships and all that stuff all over again just for the same payout? I think that's the problem with that. It's like it's there. There was another game. It was PlayStation or whatever. I really did like it, and had like a male main character and then a female character, and they had completely different like powers, but like they would always like intervene with each other throughout the whole game. But the game basically just kind of flipped it. Whoever character you were like the character that kind of won out and some like the situation. So then like the game just went on forever. So it was really just kind of like a palette swap. Like, do you want to beat the game like with this ability, or do you want to beat the game with this ability? And that's kind of like where that started. Where it's like, yeah, I'm not gonna play a game twice for the same thing. Like the payout has to be completely different. And I think the only game that I haven't tried out to see if it's exactly the same is Octopath Traveler. Um, because like the whole thing about that game is you have 8 different storylines.
Yeah,
It's like, okay, they all experience different things and stuff, but it's like, do I get the same payout again? Because that's why that's a long game. And it's like, oh, the second one comes out. Do I want to do that too? Like it's like you kind of think about that. It's like, oh, am I strong enough to play all these storylines? It's
yeah,
like that you just have to. I just don't want to play a game and there's no real payout.
yeah. I think the only time, or the time I actually like, kind of going back to a game, but this isn't really the same in line, but there is some kind of cross between. Is like one of my favorites ever was doing a Majora's Mask because I beat it without having the ultimate mask at the end. And then once
Okay.
I found out about the ultimate mask, I was like, okay. So I went back to the game and played it so I could get all the masks collected and get the ultimate mask. And then it's like, right now I get to beat the final boss. And then like, I pretty much beat the final boss on my own personal hard mode without having that mask. And then when I get that mask and go into that, I was like, oh, this is so much easier. Like I can see why people like this and why people
Yeah.
say,
When you get that mask, you're just slapping people at this point. Like you have literally Link going Super Saiyan. And that's
yeah.
the best way to say it is like at first you were Gohan. And then you were Gohan Super Saiyan 2 when because like even if they try to run away from you, you're like, where you think you going? It's like, I don't have to
Yeah.
chase you anymore. Like it's like you don't have a shield. Don't need it. Don't need it.
Nope.
Dodge roll, cut. Dodge roll, cut. You are dying today. It's like kind of like when you got like the big sword for like Ocarina of Time. It's like, yeah, like
Yeah.
you go through a lot of trouble to get this sword, but that sword's longer, does a little bit more damage, and kind of gets through stuff quicker.
Yeah.
It's just when you get the maps, everything is basically like the game kind of changes. Now the game's afraid of you.
Yeah. I think those are like some of my favorite moments when it comes to replayability for a game to do something like that. Mind like having to replay the entire game is what really kind of puts that blockage in my head. Like, oof, do I really want to do this whole thing again? Like, even though I might get a different outcome, it's like, can I just do something where I maybe play midway through the game, or at like a really good story beat in the game, start from there and go forward instead of having to do the whole thing? Because that's where that mental block goes in my head and goes, do I really want to do this? Do I really want? Like I had that block with Resident Evil 2. It's like, do I really want to do it again? I'm like, well, the game's not that long because I already beat it, and then I could just do it again.
I do have a question for you. Do you love or hate when a game blocks you from content that you can't complete until you beat the game?
I I absolutely hate it. Like, I just don't understand why you're gonna block content because you haven't beaten the game. Like, people want to play the game, and especially nowadays in modern games and stuff like that with DLCs, added content, all this extra stuff. Even if like you're playing on a PC, because you can add mods that people put on there for stuff and everything. Like, don't lock a game to be the point where you have to beat it. Just let the person play their game, and if they want to just kind of skip the ending and stuff like that and jump into that, I mean, let it. They're gonna ruin the story for them. They're gonna ruin those beats for them. That's their choice when it comes to the game. Like, I get that you're trying to do something from a creative aspect to be like, oh, you need to beat the game before you understand this. But just
Mhm.
so many people like to play games in so many different ways. You know what I mean? Just let the kids play.
The reason why I like that question, because for me it's a depends. Like it's like basic kind of like wussy answer, but it's because it's about the framework of it. When it's like something that you went to and you just can't do it because the game says you can't do it until you do this, then that sucks, because it's like that's probably like a lot of times it's not even a big thing, right? It's like, oh, you get to defeat an extra boss, or in hi-fi rush right now, like there's some challenge like stages that you have to actually go back to the old stages in order to go find them and then to go do them. And it's like the game I actually go through with like kind of like a little story about like, hey, what is this door here for? Actually, I have no idea what that door is for. It's not even on the map. Should we be worried about it? No, we got other things to worry about. Oh, okay. Well, I guess we'll skip it. But then, like, the game's like, hey, we're seeing a lot of like random energies happening now. Maybe you can go back to these old levels and play. No, I'm not doing that. You had
Yeah,
your chance.
exactly.
I found the doors. You had your chance. I'm not doing it. And it's like that's where I dislike it. But there's a game, Lunar 2 for the PlayStation, where it's like it's a long RPG. You're like you love it, play it, blah blah blah. And then you do see the ending credits, but the game has an epilogue. And so you have the game after the game if you want to have like the actual true ending. That is when I'm okay with it. That is what I like, because that epilogue wasn't a short story either. It was a good amount of a playthrough, especially after a really hard boss. And you're like, oh, character, gave up her life, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, no, she didn't. I'm gonna go find her. And it's like, oh, there's more game. Oh hell yeah! Like what's go? I was like, heck yeah! Then you're like doing all this stuff. I like that because it's not like, oh, you beat the game, go do whatever. Like I hate that like thing. It's like go do
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
You can go run around and do all the things that you skip because you wanted to see the ending. It was like, oh, but I don't like that. It's like at least here it's like, yeah, no, there's part two of part two. Like, oh, interesting.
See, but like when it happens to me in games, like I don't see that as like I get they're blocking it in a sense, but at the same time, it's just you're still continuing the game on for it. It's kind of that you beat the game. psych, no, there's still this added on. It's like, oh shoot, okay, cool. You know what I mean? Kind of
Mhm.
like those moments when you have like a final boss and you kill the boss. You're like, yeah, I did it, and all of a sudden it pops up and it's like a different boss. You're like, oh shoot, no, I didn't do it. All right, let's do this. All right, let's go grab another water, another freaking energy drink because we got this to go on. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Those type of things I don't really see as like a thing of like, oh, like has to be blocked because you have to finish the game. The other way you're talking about is kind of the one where I see it just does not make sense to me. It's like just you just let the people play, let them have it how they want, stuff like that. The other ways just kind of put it in a, to me in my head for some reason. This is maybe a me thing. It just puts it in a different perspective.
Yeah, but like think of it like how bad or worse would it be if you play Kingdom Hearts 2 and you couldn't fight Sephiroth until after you beat the game?
I don't know because Kingdom Hearts sucks.
Well, not for me. I'm just saying, but like when you have like a character that you want to beat, and it's
No, yeah,
like like he's the standard of hard, and you're like, no, I want to beat this guy now, and it's like, yeah, but you can't beat him now. Like, well, why not? He's part of the Coliseum. But like in that game, you can obviously, but it would suck to be like, no, I want to beat him. I'm not going to go back and then try to train. Like I
yeah,
understand I got to be level 99 to have a shot, but like I could get the level 99 first and then go beat the game after the fact. I don't want to like beat the game and then it's like, okay, now I'm just playing the game just to train my character and then having to go back and fight him. No, like, let's just do it now. Let's just I will figure it out. I just need to get good. That should be the only blocker. Get good. It's like when it comes to that game, it's like not like the game telling you stop it. You're going out off the plan. You got to follow the plan.
yeah,
It's all like I like that. And see, I think that's dope. But yeah, that was just one of those things too, because that happens a lot. It's like when there are interesting ways to kind of continue a game. There's a lot of cool things that you could do to kind of keep playing the game, revisit it, and have that replay value. But I feel like there just sometimes the replay value just causes you to completely stop, and then you kind of
yeah.
lose like the how I say the momentum of trying to play the game. And I think that's kind of where the problem that I think it is like when you kill the momentum, like it's not like the mobile games where they only kill the momentum for a little bit. 5 minutes. You can't play no you failed too many times. You gotta wait 5 minutes before you play again. After 5 minutes, you can come back. Like mobile games have the perfect drug like system going on. And even then, like for like games like we're playing like gotcha games and stuff, it's like, yeah, we only give you a little bit. Once you play a little bit, then you could be done with the game for the day, but you won't miss out on the rewards. So just play a little bit every day. It's like, I hate this. But when it comes to bigger stuff, it's just kind of like when they say, oh no, we're not going to give you new content till like 6 months. I was like, man, what I could be doing in 6 months.
It's a long time. Like a good example is what's it called, Death's Door, where I played it and it was one of the ones where I got really close to the ending of it, but I got held up with school and I just didn't get back to it, and so I had talked to like all my friends. So like, dude, Death's Door, it's a great game. You need to play it. And my buddy Will ended up playing it, and then he ended up beating it. And he's like, this. He's like, oh, I got to this part. I was like, oh, that's the end. He's like, yeah. And he like messaged me through Discord. He's like, oh wait, dude, there's more. I was like, what else? What else can you do? And he's like, oh wait, never mind. It's just you can just go back and do the things again and this and that. I'm like, oh well, I don't care about that.
Yeah.
Like, you should have just let me do it right then and there. Like, I don't want to go back anymore. So
Hmm.
once I heard that, I was like, okay, cool. Like, I don't need to do the extra stuff at that point.
Pretty much. Like it's just how would I say it? I want to continue that point, but honestly, I kind of think you said it. Like it's just one of those things where it's like I think that's a good point to kind of wrap up on. It's just there's just sometimes where it's like it can really stop, and then there are just sometimes where a way that they do it is I think that's what I was trying to say. A way that they kind of do it like that, where it's like it kind of tricks you into like, oh yeah, there's more
Yeah.
to it though, but really it's just go hog wild, and like it always gonna ends up like that. It's like, oh, what is all this other superhero things I could do right now? And it's like, well, you already defeat the boss. No one should be in danger. No, but there's little things. There's Jimmy has not crossed that street yet. We gotta go help Jimmy. It's like we gotta go back.
It's
It's
like,
all
dude,
like,
Jimmy's really been waiting there for 20 hours of me playing this extra part of the game. Come on,
Exactly.
Jimmy, just get across the street on your own.
Yeah, you just got Jimmy like said he was gonna help me. Now I'm late. I haven't got food. Like the world keeps changing. I see day night cycles every 5 minutes, and damn, I just want to cross the street. It's
He
just
said he'd come back. He said he'd come back.
so that's kind of yeah. That's kind of what I want to talk about today because I think it's fun, and this question actually came up because Laura asked me about this, so and I actually kind of had to think about it, like because there's just some games where yeah, like I'm a guy who will play as much of it as possible, but once I got the any credit, I'm released. That game's done. It's time to move on to the next one, or else I won't feel like I won't be able to play any games. That's kind of just how I feel about it. You?
um, I think for me personally, this is something I've learned to train my brain to do, and it's to the point where if I don't beat a game, but if I'm done with it, it's like it's okay to just not beat the game. It's like, ah, dude, I played like half of the game and stuff like that. Like, I feel there's a lot of stigma, and I know it used to happen before, but I don't think it happens anymore. It's maybe because we're older, but it's like, oh, like, I didn't beat that game. It's like, why didn't you beat that game? Blah, blah, blah. Now it's more like, oh, yeah, I played about like 20 hours, played 15 hours of it, and it was pretty fun. They're like, oh, that's cool. It's like, yeah, you know what I mean? Like, learn to get that mentality better if you're a person who kind of plays through games and doesn't finish them very often. If you do that, like you will just feel a lot better. Just be like, all right, cool. And like I kind of switched that point to going back to what I was saying about like taking the game off of the hard drive. Like that's what I do now. So if I'm done with a game, I don't want to play anymore. I take it off the hard drive. If it's a game that I definitely want to go back to, or I keep it. I keep it on my hard drive, whether it's on my PC, PlayStation, Switch, or Xbox. Like that's how I uh, get through my backlog slash my playthroughs at the moment to understand these are my main points that I'm keeping. Everything else, if I really want to get back into it, I can download it. So I have to force myself to make that extra step to get into it.
Yeah, no, I think I'm pretty much like that too. Like, and you know what? If companies want to sell, this personal opinion, no, not reflecting the opinions of anybody. Personal opinion, I feel like if you want to sell consoles with that solely rely on digital games, the hard drive has to be like 5x than what they are. Like
Yeah,
it's just like you can't sell the console and be like, well, it's everything, else, but without the disk drive. And it's like, yeah. But if you're gonna do that, then I need a big hard drive. Like I 500 doesn't do it for phones anymore. Like
yeah,
when it comes to games, especially games that are not optimized, you need all the space that you get. It's like no external hard drive, no trying to jimmy wire this, no, well, let me do it in this way. If you're gonna sell a console, you need to expand the hard, like 2 terabytes should be the minimum now. Like this is how these games are. Like one game is almost like a fifth of a hard drive for
yeah,
some things. Like unless they're like games that don't have a lot of stuff. Like a fighting game, most fighting games are not that big. Even when you download character, they're really small, but there would be a game that could be like 6 hours that could be like 10 10 gigs to 90 gigs, and you're just like, I just don't understand how this game takes up so much space. And then I'm supposed to just hot swap stuff out. That's the only thing I don't like about the Steam Deck, is that it starts off at 64 gigs, and it's like, why? You are a portable PC, and your minimum spec is 64 gigs. And I'm sitting there looking at my Steam library, and I'm like, I don't even think I could do that. Like, there's no way. Like,
yeah.
it's like I haven't bought the game from Steam in like what, a hot minute, and there's still no way that I'd be able to put like my entire library on there. Like, it's just like it doesn't make any sense. And then if you try to put like a current game on there, even if it does like scale down, it's still not going to run well. Like, it's because it just doesn't have the breathing room when it's like only on six. Some games probably won't even be on the Steam Deck because 64 gigs is just nothing. So
It's
you have
tiny,
to
man.
get like a minimum of 256, and even then, like I think I've been like, when I go to electronics now, like the minimum is 512, even for like a computer, no matter what type of hard drive it is. Like it doesn't matter how fast, or if it's like an NVMe drive or whatever. If you're only working with 256 gigs, you're not working with anything. It's like you're gonna
Mm-mm.
download a few things, you're gonna have a lot of documents, and it's gonna just fill up so quickly, and you're gonna realize it because the hard drive works slower. And so it's like when it comes to games and stuff, it's like if they need to up the space. Like that's my extra rant for the day. Like it's just if you're gonna sell digital only content, then you need to have big hard drives. I don't care how you do it. I don't care what you need to do, but 2 terabytes exist, 4 terabytes exist. You just need to find a way to get them in the console, and they're not that expensive. I will not
Yeah,
say that they
they've
are.
gotten so much cheaper. Like I for my PC alone, I have two NVMe E drives, and one of them is just strictly for programs and basic using and stuff like that, which is the 1 terabyte. And then I have a 2 terabyte that's just strictly for my games. And the reason why I limit it that way is because same thing. I don't want to have just a bunch of games downloaded and just sitting there. So it's like I just have 2 terabytes, which is enough to keep the games I want to keep playing, as well as the ones that I know I'm going to go back to at some point. And then I could just kind of switch them out at that point. And since it's on that uh, M.2 drive, it's just quick, easy to download, play, and everything like that.
Yeah, I'm doing that too. So I have a 2 terabyte for my main one, and that was an upgrade because I started at the 512. But when you're running like Unreal, when you're running like Unity, when you're running like a lot of other stuff, it's a lot to kind of put on there. And so I had changed the 512 to be the extra one, and that's where my project files kind of stay at for like a lot of the heavy stuff. I have files all over the place. Like this computer has like 4 or 5 hard drives, and then I still have like 3 externals that I like connect to, and it's like I just make sure like I try to like just deviate them. This is cold storage, this is hot storage. But like for like this main stuff is like your main hard drive just has to be big or else operating system don't work as cleanly. Like a lot of other problems kind of get introduced to this pretty much all flash drive at that point. So you're just trying to make sure like as long as I have a big thing, I don't have to worry about it. I don't want to figure out what I gotta delete. I don't want to figure out what I got to clean up here. Like I shouldn't have
Yeah,
to figure this out. It's like I don't. It's like you said. Like I just don't want to really have to really deal with that. And it's like it's dumb. I gotta like 2023. I don't want to deal with it anymore.
yeah, for real.
Even with my phone, I'm thinking of getting like, oh, I think I have to get a terabyte. I just don't want to deal with it. It's like I looked at my phone. My phone told me I was full. Like all the rest, I'm like, oh, this is 256, and then now they're not allowing you to do no SD
SD
cards
cards.
anymore. They're just like
Yeah,
it's all full internal memory, and it's like, I looked at my phone and was like, I got 10 gigs worth of memes on my phone. I'm just like, what is this? It's just like I get 10. It was like, what is this? And then like somehow I have apps. I'm all like, how are my apps 200 gigs? Like, what are my apps like? Google. I'm gonna go on Facebook, clear. I'm going to all the other apps, just clear cache, do all this because it's like something's going on. Because like even when you update your game, you're only updating a little bit, but they take stuff out at the same time. Like so, a lot of times stuff just gets cycled out. Like you hardly ever have a game that's like, oh, I downloaded like 2 gigabytes and then it forever is not 2 gigabytes. Sometimes it's like normally 2.5 or whatever, but not 90. Like when it comes to a phone, and then my phone's just like completely full. It's just like Jesus Christ, I don't even know what to do with it because I don't know what to take out. I don't hardly even have video like that I record because I normally don't record video on the phone. It's just all pictures, and even then, it's like should pictures really be filling up a
it's
256?
I'm starting to run into that dilemma now because Google Photos had like their cloud system unlimited if you had a Pixel phone, and
Yeah.
they finally switched it this year to where you have to pay for more memory and stuff in that space. And so now
Mhm.
my phones are actually going to start running out of memory because like, oh shoot, like I'll shoot videos, I'll take pictures and everything, stuff like that. And before I would just save it on the cloud and then I would just delete them and I would still have access to them. And if I really wanted to use them, I would just download it and share it. And now it's like now I get things like, oh, your cloud space is at 50, almost 50%. I'm like, ah, you mothers, like why are you doing this to me, man? Like you're making it a hard
Yeah.
life.
Yeah, no, I have to do it for Apple too. Like it's just one of those things where it's like on my Android phone is one thing because I just start with the whole like bigger drive, but like Apple is like, yeah, I have to do the cloud storage because it's just you just you want to make sure everything's like on the up and up and all that, but it's just one of those things where it's like, yeah, I normally don't have the space, and then trying to buy an Apple phone with more storage, it's just it costs real money,
it's
especially if you're already starting at the $1,000 price range. Like at that point, you're like,
it's It's basically murder.
It's a lot of money. But at least it's an option. Like when I look at like the play PS5 and I looked at, I already had to like dump games like 5 times already. I'm like, this could have been 2 terabytes. Look how
Well,
big this
even
monster is.
even that 2 terabyte they've been pushing lately, like that thing's expensive to get for the PlayStation.
Yeah, and they do that too. Like they always try to upmarket. Like, don't worry, this is
Yeah.
gold. Like it's not that better than what PC people are doing. Like it really isn't. Like, or at least Hogwarts Legacy shown that no, load times can still happen. Trust me. It's like oh, load times can still happen. And it's like and I don't even get that because like that game I have for fully 100% digital, and then downloaded and stuff like that. I'm on like there's some time where you'll run to a door and then like you literally like hit the door because the door has a little like it's trying to load everything else beyond the door, and it's like you just got to the door too quickly, so you're just like.
Are you serious? You're just
Yeah.
waiting
And then
there.
all of a sudden, like your character just goes this like kind of like he's like, I am fabulous. Like just pushes the doors out. Like, okay, now we get to do what we kind of do. And it's like, what was that? It's just kind of it's
Dang.
such a funny thing when you see it. You just run to a door and you see it almost looks like the outline of like the apple like little spinning ball.
Yeah.
It just poof. Just like, well, what the heck?
Do you know if because you're doing early access, right, for that game?
Yeah, but now
Do,
the game's out.
oh, okay. I was gonna say, did it have like a day one patch by chance that might maybe help out with that?
I'm not sure because like I had completely downloaded the game a full day prior. Like
Hmm.
that was the only thing that I really liked about all this is like the game was completely downloaded for like a full lot. I was like, oh, it's already downloaded. I'm literally just waiting. It's just like 3 minutes, 2 minutes. Let's do it. Let's do it. It's like I was like, okay, I admit I can see why people do this now. This is probably like the one thing. It's like not only it's early access, it's literally it's as far as like right, and the game came up like it was a movie premiere. I was like, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I dig this. But I think there was probably a day one patch because, or at least I didn't receive it because like the main character, if you like do the customization for the main character, don't bother changing the pitch of the character. It sounds terrible. It sounds like your character went a lower voice, but then they added like a low and reverb to the voice. So it's
Hmm.
like how would I say it? I'm not sure if you can kind of hear it here, but it's like kind of gives kind of like a reverb to it, or like it kind of changes it or adds something on top of it. Like it makes it
Yeah.
more robotic. So instead of being
Okay.
like a deeper voice, like it's more like, just kind of adds that like random pitch to it. And it's like, oh, it's just weird. And I'm like, no, can I please tell me I can change that back? And it's like, yeah, you could change it in the settings. Like, oh, thank God. Cause I was like, it's just like no, it's
Hmm.
just so bad. Like no matter how you change it, no matter how much you change it to, like it just adds like a weird tone to it. But then like the main volume literally sounds like Harry Potter in my face. It sounds like they just got Daniel Radcliffe to like say the lines. It's just a little off, but it's like that sounds like him. That sounds like him. It just sounds like they didn't really decide too much from it. But yeah, no. If you ever play the game, don't change the pitch or like change it just to
Got
get a
it.
laugh out of it, but it's definitely there. Like when you're like responding to everybody who has like natural voices and you're like, yes, professor, or like it's like, yes, professor, like how may I help you? It's such a bad, it's like, oh Jesus, like it's like, oh, of course I'm special. I'm a robot.
I'm actually infiltrating the wizard world to kill you all.
Yeah, it's like, of course I'm a fifth year because I was born yesterday, literally. It's like one of those things. Yeah, it's funny though. I am enjoying the game, but we went a little bit over time, so I kind of want to kind of hit it there because we did tangent off a little bit. There's
Yeah.
just some things like we have to get off our chest. I don't want to wait to another call. But do you have anything else you want to say for the end of it?
No, I think we hit it all.
Yeah, I think we hit it out of the park. Great talk, and I think this was kind of amazing. And hopefully you enjoyed this conversation too. And if you really did, don't forget to hit the like button. And if you're watching us kind of after the fact, don't worry, we're always here every Friday at 7 p.m. Central Time. Come over here and chill with us and kind of see what else we're talking about. And if you like this topic, but you want to hear something that you're more interested in, put it in the comments down below or hit us up on Twitter. But with that, my name is Dushawn Williams. This is Christopher Makata. Thank you for joining us at Gaming Over 30, and we will see you next time.